Have you ever thought of yourself as a detective? Well, today we're going on an investigation. But the clues aren't at some crime scene. They're actually on our own skin. It's our biggest organ, and you'd be amazed at the secrets it can hold about what's going on deep inside our bodies. So let's get into it.
You know, every good detective story starts with a question, a piece of evidence that just doesn't add up. So what if that simple rash you see isn't just a rash? What if it's actually the first clue, pointing to something way more important?
Okay, so every investigation has to start somewhere, right? It starts with that first piece of evidence. And for us, that first clue appears right on the skin. Let's open up the case file.
And here it is, our first major clue. It's called the Shawl Sign. Now, just the name itself gives you a hint, doesn't it? As you're about to see, it's an incredibly fitting description for what we're looking for.
And you can immediately see why they call it that. This rash, which is usually a reddish or purplish color, literally drapes across the shoulders, the neck, and the upper back, just like you'd wear a shawl. This really specific pattern, this is our first big lead in the case.
So, we have our clue. But a clue is pretty useless unless it leads you to a suspect, right? So what condition does the Shawl Sign point to? It's time to put a name to what we're looking at.
The Shawl Sign is a classic indicator of a condition called dermatomyositis. And if you break down the name, it makes perfect sense. Derma refers to the skin, and myositis means muscle inflammation. It's basically an inflammatory disease where the body's own immune system gets its wires crossed and starts attacking its own tissues.
But wait, because the story does not end there. Sometimes, dermatomyositis isn't just a standalone issue. It's actually a signal for something else happening entirely, and this is where our investigation takes a really critical turn.
In some situations, dermatomyositis shows up as what's called a paraneoplastic syndrome. Now, this is a super important concept to get. It means the symptoms, so the rash and the muscle weakness, they aren't being caused by cancer cells directly. Instead, they're caused by the body's immune system reacting to a hidden cancer somewhere else in the body. That rash is, in effect, a giant alarm bell that the body is ringing to signal a much deeper problem.
And this table right here shows exactly why that alarm bell is so incredibly important. When dermatomyositis is acting as one of these paraneoplastic syndromes, it can be linked to several types of cancer, including lung, breast, ovary, and nasopharyngeal cancers. The skin sign is literally an external clue to a serious internal issue.
Now, any good detective will tell you you never rely on just one piece of evidence. You always look for corroborating clues. And in this case, the Shawl Sign rarely shows up alone. It's usually part of a whole family of related rashes that make the diagnosis even stronger.
So let's look at the first piece of supporting evidence. It's a rash simply known as the V sign.
And just like its sibling, the Shawl Sign, the V sign gets its name from its location. It's a very similar looking rash that shows up in the V shape of the upper chest and neck, an area that often gets a lot of sun exposure.
All right, next up in our file is a very, very distinctive clue. And this one has a particularly beautiful name, actually. This one is called the heliotrope rash. It's named after the purple heliotrope flower, which is just perfect because it's this very specific violet-colored rash that appears right on the eyelids. For a clinician, seeing this is a massive piece of the puzzle. And finally, our last piece of corroborating evidence. This one takes us to a totally different part of the body, and it has another one of those really memorable names.
This is the holster sign. And yeah, you guessed it, it appears on the sides of the thighs, right where a gunslinger in an old western would wear a holster. Now, the medical term for this rash is poikiloderma, which sounds complicated, but it just means you're seeing a mix of things. Thinning skin, some changes in color, and tiny little visible blood vessels.
Okay, so we've got the Shawl Sign, the V sign, the heliotrope rash, and the holster sign. We've collected all the evidence. So what's the verdict? Why does it matter so much to put all these clues together?
This is where it all comes together, and it's so important. The timeline for these symptoms is completely variable. These skin signs are clues, can show up before, at the very same time as, or even after the muscle symptoms of dermatomyositis start. And what that means is the rash can be the absolute first warning that something is wrong.
So, here's the verdict. When you see this family of rashes, you're not just looking at some minor skin irritation. Together, they are highly suggestive of dermatomyositis. And that finding, well, that demands a much, much closer look. And that really brings our investigation to a close.
The big takeaway here is that these skin signs are so much more than skin deep. They are powerful, early warning indicators. Spotting them means a quick medical evaluation is absolutely essential, not just to manage the autoimmune disease itself, but to investigate and rule out a potential underlying cancer, hopefully when it's at its most treatable stage, from a simple rash to a potentially life-saving clue. Case closed.
It's just an incredible reminder that our bodies are constantly talking to us, sending us signals. The real challenge is just learning how to read the clues. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets could our bodies be trying to tell us right now?